Welcome to Blake Street Banter, where one of us knows what the word banter means, the other one is just along for the ride. Tyler, how does your fantasy football season go?
Actually, the worst fantasy season I've had in my entire life. I lost I literally was in contention to lose the two leagues I care most about, and lost one of them. So
Oh
that
no.
yeah, I normally am a dog. So this was a humbling year.
Like lost as in last place lost or
Yeah, one league I went 4-10,
oh
and the
wow.
other 5-9. So and they actually play out the losers bracket in that league. Fortunately, didn't lose out, but it was a little scary.
Who's the player that you put your hat on? Like this is the guy that's going to carry me at the beginning of the season, and then he
Yeah,
was just an absolute dud.
Bucky Irving. That was
Yeah.
both of those leagues. So it's hard. It's hard when you lose a limb basically on your team. So
Yeah. It's the biggest thing. Yeah, I was second in my home league, and my team just put up an absolute dud at the end. Granted, the guy I faced had Puka, Brock Purdy, Brian Robinson, Kyron Williams, and just had a stacked team. Trey McBride as his tight end, and so there was nothing I could have done to actually win that matchup. He ended up doing 160 points and just went off. So fantasy football season is over. I have no idea what I'm going to do now before fantasy baseball season starts. So I don't know. We might just start getting into knitting or crocheting, but that's not what we're here for. We are here to rebuild the Colorado Rockies and what the 2027 blueprint looks like for the Colorado Rockies. So the offseason, it's been kind of boring, but kind of exciting, right? We got the entire new front office. Everything was awesome. We have Paul, we have the crew behind him that he's hiring. He's starting to add coaches to Warren's staff, and we're getting all that kind of figured out. Really excited about the pitching group, pitching coaches that they have, but that's it. As the Twitter sphere likes to point out, the Rockies have not signed any Major League Baseball free agents, which is fair to a point, not fair, whatever. Red Sox, I think, ended up finally making a move for a Major League caliber player to their team. I don't know who did they make a trade?
They've made a couple of
They made
trades. I know
trades, right?
that. I don't know. I don't think they've signed a free agent yet. So we're not alone in
Okay.
not signing an MLB free agent yet.
It's the free agents that's the same as the Boston Red Sox, who
Yeah.
pretty much have World Series aspirations every year. And we're the Colorado Rockies trying to get to 60, 62 wins. So we'll see. They traded for Hunter Dobbins, was the guy I was trying to think of. So we're in a kind of a mixed bag of an off season. I know I'm excited with where it's at, but it's been a very boring 3 weeks. So let's look ahead and see what Paul and crew, we're going to call like Ruppel and crew, Paul and crew for you parents out there, you get it. What do they need to do to contend in 2027? First, what does it look like? What does it mean to be competitive? What are the big challenges that they should be addressing right now in the back scenes, behind the scenes stuff? And exactly how realistic is it? So when you think of a competitive 2027 team, we're skipping right past 2026. We're going to assume that there's no MLB strike in the offseason. We're starting 2027 in April, March 30th, probably. What does competitive look like at the beginning of that season?
Yeah, and this is where I think some people are going to see this and just react in some way where they're like, that's ridiculous. Like Rockies competitive in 2027.
That's exactly.
I mean, I think, and it's kind of true, but at the same time, we've seen teams, and it's almost not even about making the playoffs. It's about being in the playoff run. Like, are you in the mix in September and in October? That's really the goal, because from there you never know. But food for thought: the Reds made the playoffs last year with 83 wins, and in 2023, two teams made the playoffs in the National League. I'm only talking National League. D-backs and Marlins both 84 wins in the playoffs. So if you can hit that 80 win mark, like you are just the will of a player away. Like someone just goes out there, balls out for the last week, you win out. That might get you in the playoffs, even though you're like a true 80 win team. So the goal is not to win 90, to win the division. Can the Rockies be pushing for 80 wins 2 years from now? Again, somewhat unlikely that that's going to happen. But I don't think it's remotely impossible. We haven't gotten to see those on-field changes quite yet, but things are happening in the front office where at least the door is open again.
Right, and I miss all of that because I think my internet connection sucks. But hopefully, everybody else got to hear that, and it was me and not you.
So. Worst case, yeah, we're speaking. If anyone speaks R2D2, then maybe you got that. So
I moved and you sound better. So I don't, whatever. So you're talking about the Red Sox, D-backs, 84, 85 wins, that kind of stuff. So that's doable, right? We've seen the Rockies get there in the 2018. Do you remember off the top of your head how many wins they had in 2018 when they were an actual playoff contender?
I think that year that was like 85 or 86. I think in 2019 they won 91. Those are the numbers I believe. Yeah. It's within a couple on those, but
they had 71s in 2019, 91 wins in 2018.
Oh, yeah. It was 17 and 18.
Was a wild card spot. So 90, the 85 mark is playoff contention, especially with the expanded playoffs. So the biggest challenge, when you think of the Colorado Rockies, the biggest challenge obviously always comes pitching. It's always the thing that comes to the forefront. But how do the hitters actually take advantage of Coors Field? I think this is something that the Colorado Rockies new front office and management need to kind of figure out, because we saw it work with the Blake Street Bombers. We saw it work in 2018, but you had a kind of a nice little mix of a lineup. You have high averages with some guys that could hit it over the fence, that kind of stuff. That was always fun. What kind of profile really takes advantage of Coors Field at altitude, I think, is one of the biggest challenges that needs to happen. We haven't seen it with the prospects coming up, right? We all know what Billy and crew liked, and it was just big upside talent with one skill set. It wasn't a well-rounded player. Like, oh, you have raw power? Sure, let's go with it. It comes with a 30% strikeout rate. Don't know if I really like that, but we'll figure it out by the time you're in the major leagues. But we never got figured out. So that's where we're kind of sitting, right? What's like, is hitting the biggest challenge, or is pitching the biggest challenge that needs to be addressed to actually be competitive in 2027?
I mean, I've always been on the train that, and I don't think it was ever going to be Billy's crew to fully figure it out. But I think they made some headway on pitching. Like, they started to understand, like, okay, these types of fastballs are not going to work so well in Coors Field. We got to, like, just try to build certain profiles. We always talked about the extension type stuff, the arm slots. Like, they were working on that. They haven't gotten many of those guys to the big leagues yet because it hasn't been that long. I don't think pitching is super far off. I don't think they have the guys in-house in the system right now to solve the hitting issues, because we drafted a one-size-fits-all mold for most of the guy, like developed a ton of guys like that you exactly as you mentioned, like raw power, but 30% strikeout rate. That is 6 spots in our lineup right now, pretty much. So it's okay to have one or two of those guys because they represent upside and boom or bust, but you've got to mix in and I threw in the rundown, a Stephen Kwan would be the perfect player, in my opinion, for Coors Field. Super high contact rate, really good approach, tons of line drives. That's what you want. A lot of balls in play, line drives. That's going to be, Stephen Kwan in Cleveland is like a, 270 hitter with like a 400 slug. I think that jumps 20 to 30 points in Coors Field without any improvements, just because there's going to be more doubles, triples. So a Stephen Kwan type of player, adding them to the top, but having like 2 of those guys is really where, and Stephen Kwan, you're not going to find 2 Stephen Kwans, but to just find more of those contact line drive oriented guys, hopefully with 10 homer power. That's, I think, where you start to figure out the offensive side of things. I think Paul DePodesta, it's going to be pretty quick for him and the crew to get looking at the data and say, okay, we can't go for guys that this is their pitching archetype. Like, this is like Chase Dollander fastballs. We got to avoid fastballs like that. Like that, his pitch could go and work in a lot of different environments, but Chase Dollander to pitch at Coors Field, it's difficult. And so I think Paul DePodesta, again, he's going to get the data in front of him with the guys, and they're going to say, okay, hey, splitters work really well at Coors Field. Changeups generally work really well at Coors Field. The breaking ball thing, I'm personally still a little bit unsure. I need to do more digging on that. But from what I can tell, having steeper breaking balls, like not necessarily a 12-6 curveball, but breaking balls coming from a higher release point with more downer action. I think generally those are successful at Coors Field if you're locating them properly. And it seems like the sweeper also is a pretty effective offering. But I think Paul DePodesta and crew, they're gonna have the Rockies as it is did a lot of work there. I think DePodesta needs to tie the loose ends together. And currently Aaron is, I think, addressing some internet concerns and issues. So I will try to keep rambling on a little bit. But I think the lineup is almost a bigger issue to address. Yeah, Aaron, you're back. I'm finishing my rant that I think the lineup is slightly a bigger issue to fix because I don't think you really have many of those guys in house. Pitching wise, I trust Paul DePodesta to take the Excel sheets and all that, this and that, and figure out, hey, these are the types of things that generally work here. Let's start a whole new era, bringing more of those guys in. There's probably already some in-house. Like, I like a Sean Sullivan. I like a Brody Brecht for completely different reasons, but I like both those guys to potentially figure out Coors Field. So I want to see more done on the hitting side almost. I want to see acquisitions on the pitching side, but I think that they're closer to figuring out how to strategize in-house.
Yeah, all that was great. You're spot on. I agree with everything that you said that I missed. You're definitely on it. But to kind of, I guess, go out with what you were saying now, the diversity that is in the system right now, I think there's more diversity in the pitching side of things. If you look at low A all the way up to triple A, you got a Sean Sullivan, Brody Brecht, two completely different types of pitchers in the same kind of thing. You got Mason Albright throwing 95 now in the offseason, which is pretty exciting for a low end rotation guy, long relief type player. And you have some of these guys that can come in and do whatever you might need them to do in different ways. Like we saw Jimmy Herget and his little wind up stuff, little glitch in the system type stuff work tremendously at Coors Field. And then you got Seth Halverson going ham with 100+ out of the bullpen. So they seem to already kind of have the idea of what might work pitching wise at Coors. Is getting the right people in place to take them to the next step. We'll get into Chase Dolander in a little bit, but it's the hitting. That profile is not very different across the prospect world. And like you think, oh, Brenton Doyle, is he part of this crew? I don't know. We'll let you know in a little bit. But if he does go, who's going to replace him? Cole Carrick fits right in. Friend of the pod, love the man. They're not completely different types of players. Very, very similar athletic center field profiles at the plate and in the field. So how are we getting a little bit better at that center field spot? Jordan Beck, he got a little bit better last year. He's trying to figure it out. Hunter Goodman, same type of thing. But are they too similar in the way they do it? Like, can Hunter Goodman do 30 home runs again? I don't know. We can hope for 25, and like that should be like the standard that's expected. But what's coming up in the system? Yankiel Fernandez, great pop, but as Isaac likes to say, he's not very good. He doesn't say that, but he has numbers to back it. So I don't know. There's just not a lot of different profiles in the system. Like Zach Veen is completely different than Yankiel Fernandez, but they still have the biggest glaring hole of contact rate in the zone. So I don't know. I think that needs to be figured out. And is that a system thing, Tyler, or did we just do terrible drafting under the Billy Schmidt era from 2020 to 2025, 2024, 2025? It is 2025 still. And this is just the profile they were going for. And that's something I think the new front office will figure out. But I don't know. I don't. Yes, go. What's your rebuttal? I mean, what I'm saying.
I think there were some issues drafting. Like we talked yesterday, because Baseball America had a 2021 MLB draft like redo, and that was the year we took Benny Montgomery and their redraft. They have us taking Sal Frelick. You cannot imagine two more different players, and so I think that's an example of where the scouting process was off. Like you cannot continue to just target these super high upside guys who have a ton of risk. You've got to mix in other types of players. And so I think the Rockies overly and took risk for an organization that simply needs to get guys to the big leagues consistently. But I think a lot of that fell also on just the development side of things. Not having a consistent plan from rookie ball and in the complex league all the way up to the big leagues. Like, you've got to have really consistent messaging, building stronger foundations for the players in Arizona and everywhere, where they're learning how to approach things like other organizations are doing. From what we heard, and there was an article from, I think it was Yahoo. They incorporated that up until maybe this year, our minor league players didn't have access to TrackMan data. To really like look into like, hey, what maybe am I doing wrong, and what are, like, we're facing this dude on Wednesday. What does his arm do, or what do these hitters do? Apparently, they weren't looking at that stuff. That is every like major league team in some way. Like, they're letting guys do whatever they want. Like, hey, you need to, like, you can look at the data if you want. Some players aren't going to do that so much, but ultimately, a lot of the better players are understanding, an attack plan based on data. And that's something we lacked a lot, even in especially in the minor leagues, because you've got to learn that coming up.
And I think the consistency is what I'm excited about. And again, we're going to talk about that in a second, because we talked to somebody, or somebody shared with us that they love their hitting coach in Spokane, right? And it was fantastic, made great strides. Then the Rockies let that Spokane hitting coach go. My connecting the dots, my putting words in the other person's mouth without putting words in the other person's mouth, my take from it is, why was it that coach very specific for that player's development? Why wasn't it the organization's specific work for that player's development? Like, why wasn't that the game plan hitting from ACL once drafted all the way up to Spokane to what's beyond? So like, now there's this this is my take is, now there's this worry about that player, all the players in Spokane's development on the hitting side. How does that translate to Hartford and Albuquerque now that the game plan has now left the building, so to speak, the hitting coach leaving? Where does that land in the organization thing? And that's where I think Paul has done great communicating with all of us, that we have to work on systems and we have to put the systems into play. And I think that's where the 2027 competitive window comes into play. How do you turn Jackson Holiday? How do you turn Charlie Condon? Yeah. Robert Kalaz, I think, is right around the corner, as athletic as he is. Brody Brecht, how do you turn these big dogs into players that are helping this competitive window that begins in 2027? And that's where we're getting into this blueprint, right? The new leadership. What exactly do they need to do? I think we kind of covered it all, but is there anything you want to expand on that helps this competitive window in 2027, looking for that 82 win threshold mark?
Yeah, I mean, you've got a lot of guys who are pretty close to the big leagues. You think of Charlie Condon, Sean Sullivan, handful of other guys, Cole Carrick, you mentioned already. Like, those guys, if you can make just some of the slight improvements to their process, like with Cole Carrick, you've started to see the chase and the swing and miss creep up a little bit. Like, can you is there something that they can find to combat that just a little bit? Because that might make Cole Carrick a strong contributor late in 2026 and into 2027. And I think Chase Dollander, and I think we're going to spend even a little bit more time on him later. That's one of the most critical guys of hey, can we establish a process that starts in spring training to really get his stuff on track and have a more consistent game plan that makes sense from home to road? Because I think the way he wants to pitch can thrive on the road. The way he wants to pitch is going to, lead to struggles at home. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys we can run through, but getting more coaches in the building. I think the AAA guys, they're going to, kind of be around in spring training, getting to know guys. I wouldn't hope that Chase Dollander's in AAA, but if he does go to AAA, I want to have confidence that what he works on there is exactly what needs to be worked on. I'm sure it will, because he's such a big name for this organization. But it sounds like guys have gone to AAA, and the things that they work on are not exactly what the major league staff wanted them to work on. And so it seems like a simple fix, and I think it will be. But some people, for some people that might be like, wait, what are you talking about? It's like, yeah, I shouldn't know what I'm talking about. Like, this is apparently a thing that had happened in the past. So that's an easy way to improve.
And the StatCast data explains that quite clearly. Like, go look at Chase Dolander's AAA numbers, like pitches to his major league pitches and his game plan, and it's just completely different. I don't know how true this is, and maybe I just need to get out of the Buddy Black hating, but how much of that was Buddy Black? Did that get better with Warren at the helm? All the other pitching coaches that were involved, I don't know. I think it was just a clear disconnect across the system. So having that going from the top to the beginning is huge. And the people that came in are coming from successful franchises, right? Like, you have the Dodgers. One of the guys come from the Brewers.
No, I think there's a Tigers. Tigers. The assistant pitching coach
in Miami. Who? Yeah,
and the bullpen coach is like the Cubs, Blue Jays background, and then our director of pitching, Matt Daniels, came from originally San Francisco, spent a lot of time there, and then the Minnesota Twins.
Okay, so no Milwaukee at all. So, but like, you look at all those track records and all these teams, they're good organizations, and you can see what they've done. Like Daniels is the one that turned, was it Ober? I know we talked about this last pod, but it was 3 weeks ago that I forgot. Turned his slider into a nasty pitch. So, like, there's this crew that has this experience that hopefully are all on the same page and are communicating how Paul and Daniels have been showing they communicate. Now, how does that trickle down all the way down from the top to the bottom, I think is the biggest thing. And I think getting to the point where analytics are actually driving. I absolutely loved, I sent it to the group chat in BSB, and I think you read it. There was a conversation between Eno Saris and Amir Garrett on the Twitter about numbers. And Amir Garrett's like, why is a player not getting signed based on ERA being low, and his metrics might not be as great compared to a high strikeout, low walk rate to ERA being high? And the conversation back and forth with Eno is pretty interesting. And I lean toward Eno with the analytics. Like, out of a pitcher, I want more Ks, less relying on my defense, et cetera, et cetera. But like that conversation, and Amir Garrett was a dog at one point, but is he behind the 8 ball with the analytics? Like, no, I'm not shouting out Amir, like, but the idea that he's trying to understand what is next so he gets his next contract and what's going on, I think is where baseball's at. And it's been clear, and all the old heads are saying, no, analytics has no place. There is a clear line between analytics and the eye test. And there's a combination that you can put in there, right? You have to have a system in place that allows you to build on and then work from there. And I think the analytics that comes with this driveline data that can be created to turn you into a better pitcher needs to be followed with this plan. We were talking about the hitting. We talked about Dolander. How does Brody Brecht work with what he's been doing on driveline on the offside? How does that insert itself into the organization to be even better with the driveline stuff? Mason Albright, he's doing the driveline stuff, posted on Twitter and all that kind of stuff. How does that fluctuate? How does that seamlessly integrate into the Colorado Rockies system? So I think like using these analytics to create these goals to become a better pitcher so you can be productive needs to happen. And that's what I'm really interested to see how that happens. And I don't know how we track that as two guys that live in their mom's basement. How do we track that? I don't know. But how do we see growth in this will be really interesting to see.
You know, and I don't think we'll ever be super spot on because we're going to see things we might not like them. In reality, it might be a good thing. We might not know kind of what they're working on, what they're trying to avoid, this and that. But generally, like under the, Bud Black and things, there were a lot of opportunities to pick out, like, why are we like German Marquez? Like, why are we pitching the way that we are? And unfortunately, I do think German Marquez got, I wouldn't say sabotage, but I don't think he got to live up to his potential. Just they start, pounding the fastball low in the zone, like constantly low in the zone. They took away, I think he used to throw a very traditional knuckle curveball, and it kind of got morphed into a slider because don't want the vertical movement, but it's a lot more nuanced than that. And so like we'll see some things where it's like, okay, that seems more like it tracks. I think it's almost the opposite though, the inverse. Like we're hopefully not going to see things that we're like, why is Chase Dollander still throwing like his four seam the exact same way at home? Things like that. Like we'll be able to try to pick through things like that. But to build on your drive line point, one of the biggest issues for the Rockies, like some of these guys would go and train in the offseason because there is like a dead period every offseason where players go train on their own. They can't use the team facilities and things like that. Down. We need that to like that shouldn't create like inconsistencies in their like development. Go to Driveline, go to your own pitching coach, your own support staff, come back, and we're gonna do the same things. Like that's what needs to be happening, and that was not happening. Guys would relish the offseason because they could go work on things really with a lot of freedom here. And when the season's going on outside of those, like the month or 2 months that are the dead period, like they're kind of restricted in what they're doing. So guys, we're happy to go work Driveline. We have a Driveline employee leading our pitching development now. Like I would hope that it's 365 days, same philosophy going on now.
Right. Having this off-season plan. All right, go work on this, go. You need a third pitch, go pitch shape, work this out so you can go do that. I mean, Kate Dipton was talking about in his little banter session with Eli and Isaac a few weeks ago was creating that third pitch and how he was working on adding that to his arsenal and working at the drive line and looking at all the metrics to really kind of figure that out. And it's cool when you hear that from some of the friends of the pod. Now it's all right. Now, is that going to be supported by the front office? And will that be followed through as they work through it? Not just at the Arizona Fall League when he was working on it, but like beyond. So it'll be interesting. What up, Felix? Thank you for hanging out. Rocks Nation all day. That's for sure. I don't know. So like we have the consistent process is pretty much what we're writing for, right?
Yeah.
We need the system in place. And that's, I think you and I have been just banging that drum on the Twitter sphere and all the socials all off season. Like this off season is super boring as far as players signings go, which I think we both agree is completely 100% okay. I do not need a Chris Bryant signing to get me excited once again. Like, thank you for skipping on Kyle Schwarber. Not that he was ever coming here, but like, we don't need that in clogging up our machine in the 27, 28, 29 window. That's fine. However, next year it's going to be a big offseason, right? Mainly because of the strike and the negotiations and how that's going to work. But also, what do you add to this team to make it better? And do the Rockies system that they create over the next year, is that going to be enough to influence players to come into this organization to want to come here? I think that's the next offseason question mark to really make this 2027 contention window happen. Like if you can develop the four cores, four guys, right? Doyle, Tovar, Goodman, Dollander. I think those are the main four up the middle that we kind of need to be part of the 2027 window. How do you build them up to bring in the stud free agents to make it a little bit better? And I think that's what next offseason should really be surrounded by. I think that's how you're turning this into a contention.
Yeah. And I mean, what we have in place obviously isn't enough. This is a stepping stone year. Yeah, 2027 is sort of the more ideal time to be making those big changes. Like, need to evaluate what you have now. And these, in a lot of ways, these guys are guinea pigs, like what we were talking about. Try to establish these processes. Look at the players we have now. You've spent 5 months evaluating them, and then go into the season and say, are what we tried to work on, are our focuses, like, are they working? And that is the feedback that this front office needs to take that step forward. Because if things are working and suddenly this is a 65-win team, which would be a pretty huge improvement from this past season. If they win 65 games, that's a 24-win improvement. That would say, hey, the things we were doing internally were great. That's the point where they get the okay to be like, okay, where are we weakest? Throw money at that. Like, okay, now let's go and try to bolster this thing a little bit. And then that's how you could possibly creep up to like 80 wins. That's where that starts to come into the picture a little. The pitching side is I was talking about the lineup. I'd love to see us sign a hitter at some point in the next couple of years. That's just like a set it and forget it guy. But at the same time, I think we do need our next like Mike Hampton, Denny Neagle, except where you're prepared to address like the things that might not work with them at altitude.
Having assigning a project that, so to speak, that, all right, you're this one pitch away from manipulating this one fastball away of being successful at Coors. Come on down. Let's do this. Adding to a Chase Dollander, Kyle Freeland's rotation, I think would be huge. And I don't know what the free agent market looks like in 2026. That's beyond me, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens this year to create that sense of confidence for free agents in the 2026 offseason. I think that's huge. And the idea that they're talking about adding talent and scouts and looking at the Pacific Rim, the Asian Pacific Rim, like looking at that, the fact that we were even talking about the guy that signed with the White Sox, like, even though that was like pretty far-fetched and don't know if it's a really good fit, but the fact that the Rockies were kind of connected to the idea that he might sign with us, I think it was a huge step forward, because that's never been ever an idea for any player coming from Japan or Korea to the Colorado Rockies. Yeah. Usually our players go to Korea and say like, hey, we're out. Like it's terrible. But I don't know, just the idea that that's a possibility is pretty exciting, which it happened in the first 2 months of Paul DePodesta's reign. So I don't know, everything's building up for a 2027 competitive window. The 80 win spark isn't too far off, but you can have all these systems in play, Tyler. What happens? You need the players to perform, and we kind of mentioned it. I mentioned it. The four guys up the middle, throw in Jordan Beck as well. He's, I think, solidified as a league average left fielder that I don't think anybody's mad about that's on their team, right? You got Beck, Goodman, Tovar, Doyle, Dollander as the five guys right now on the Major League squad that you could still see on the squad in 2027. Clearly, Jackson Holliday and Charlie Condon have to be part of the 2027 team to make it a contender. But is there a world where they actually all play on the field at the same time in 2027 and they're winning 80 some games? And I say this with the Tigers in mind, because you got Kevin McGonigal, Max Clark, and Jose Briseño pushing their way up the ranks of the farm to be put on a playoff contending team that is the Detroit Tigers. How that works, no idea. Is Max Clark play right field? McGonigal's pretty much got shortstop, but do they sign somebody to fill in that gap? What is Javi Baez? Like, you have these the Tigers have it set up. We're like, all right, we have a solid group. Give me Ryler Green, Cole Keith, Spencer Torkelson to an extent. And then you have these young guys coming up. The Rockies could be that in 2027. But is there a world that Charlie Condon, Jackson, Ethan Holiday are all on this team at the same time, right?
You know, I think with Jackson, I heard Jackson. I heard Jackson. Yeah, with Ethan, I don't quite think that he'll. I mean, 2027 is the year if things go to plan, like he probably arrives at some point. I think that's almost sort of to your point. Like, these young guys are around, and there's the expectation that at some point they're going to continue to improve the success of this team. So 2027 for him might be a little bit early. I don't know that he would be entirely necessary, though, like for what you already have in house. Like, if you can address third base, and that might be Kyle Karros, you have a solid infield for now. And then it's like late 2020s into the 2030s. That's where it's like, okay, hey, Ethan Holiday is now your like another cornerstone guy to throw into the mix. So he's almost, and I don't think the Rockies would entertain trading him, but it's almost about just having that value in your system. Like, you have this core group of guys that are all highly valuable, a lot of potential. But hopefully 2027, Ethan is around and in that dugout in some capacity.
And that is also the idea that Prince Doyle might not be part of this team in 2027. He'll be 29, 30 years old at that time. I think arbitration, he might be in his final year of arbitration at that time. So there is some contract stuff that needs to go into play with that. And we have the front office. I think Daniels came from LA, correct?
He's Minnesota.
Okay.
You might be thinking of Josh Burns, the GM.
Burns, the GM came from LA, who loved to trade their prospects for major league talent. Does that philosophy come into play with at all in any of this? We haven't seen any of it happen right now, which is fair because I think they're evaluating all the players. But like, do you move an Ethan Holiday? Said it right. Let's go for a solidified Sal Frelick. Like Sal Frelick is kind of our Stephen Kwan light type version, which I think would be really interesting to add to the front. Like you have a for sure major league caliber player. Do you move an Ethan Holiday plus more for Sal Frelick? Is that a world that happens? I think the unknown in that kind of stuff, it makes it exciting to be a Colorado Rockies fan right now, because that wasn't an option last year, 5 years ago. It kind of feels like it might be an option in 2027. Not that we want to trade Ethan Holiday or any of that. We obviously want our number one picks to work out, but it's not too far fetched where they're not moving top prospects for major league caliber players to try to hit a playoff contention window, because Paul has some history of that as well. So that will be interesting to see play out. Kyle Carroll's, I think Robert Calaz, Roldy Brito. Those are a few names that we need to keep an eye on as well. And there's a bunch of friends of the pod in the system that we love, but I don't know how many of them are helping the major league squad. I would love Aiden Longwell to be the first baseman in 2027. That would be dope as hell. And put Charlie Condon at third and Kyle Karros as whatever. But I'm just ranting right now. Let's get to the chat. All right, Sean, go Goats, as always. How important will Gabe Hughes be in 2027 turnaround? Very important, or just a bonus if he works out? We didn't mention him earlier. He is on the 40-man. He's going to be fighting for a 3, 4, 5, 6 spot at the rotation this year. We are a little bit worried about his arsenal working at the major league level as where it stands at the end of the 2025 season. It doesn't show that it would be successful in April of 2026 going into it. So what does the development of Gabe Hughes look like at the major league level to be a contender in 2027? Like you mentioned Sean Sullivan, but what about Gabe? What about our book club reading Gabe Hughes?
I mean, you've got to see some of the velocity come back. Like as it stands, the velocity that he showed last year, that's not going to be what gets him to major league success in a rotation. Like in college, he was averaging 94, 95 on his fastball. That's where he needs to be. He's like 3 ticks off of that right now, and that's a huge gap. So second full year coming off of Tommy John. If the velo usually comes back a little bit more, I mean, that's just got to be the thing for him this offseason, is getting that arm strength, arm talent, really to shine through again. So it's hard to say. You would hope, hey, all of a sudden Gabe Hughes averaging, like he's sitting 93, 96, but last year it was 90, 92, and that's not going to get there. So you've got to hope that there's the traditional Tommy John boon once you're coming back, and then some. So we'll see. Worst case, though, I think he's strongly in the mix for that, like, you know, the role Bradley Blaylock had last year, where he made like a handful of starts and was constantly around the team. But yeah, there's some things that need to click for him. But he's another one of those guys that in this new system with guys who are actually going to contribute, you know, analytically to his development. He's an interesting guy because the talent's absolutely there. He can rip a hard slider cutter thing. You know, he's got pitchability, so there's upside for sure. That hasn't left, but for any of that to matter, you need the velo to come back.
And just add in a little bit more of a stuff on the slider and the curveball to just have another number 2, number 3 out pitch going forward. I'm excited to see Gabe Hughes pitch in purple, though. It'll be fun. Berg, thanks for joining again. I think it depends on what MLB looks like after the lockout. If there are things to create a more competitive landscape among teams, sure, I'm not going to discount that. For this process, 2027, I don't think it really matters with where we are right now. Even if there is a salary floor, salary cap, you can still go find players to sign. Oakland just did it. Pittsburgh's adding players. Like they're bringing up their floor, but we still have Chris Bryant on the docket, so I think we're good. Isaac Rawlings, I don't know who that is. Must be a bum. How much trade value do high schoolers have right after the date? Would it be a good strategy to draft highest rated prep guys and trade them right away? I'm going to say you're way more knowledgeable about this. No, if you were to want a high schooler, you would probably draft them with the upside of building them up. I don't know if there's any value in a high schooler as like a top part of a trade. I think they're a throw-in. I don't know if they're the number one guy you're trying to go get.
I mean, San Diego Padres, Isaac, I'll just say that. And they've had some very successful trades. They've also traded MLB core to the Washington Nationals for Juan Soto. So I think it absolutely can kind of work, but I think it's a double-edged sword that ultimately I think teams tend to avoid that on both sides because you could have a Washington Nationals trade there, or you're not getting enough value back for your high upside players. So it's a little bit difficult to do that. I think kind of to Aaron's point, I think you draft those guys with the hope that you can develop them and improve their stock, because teams are going to say, yeah, I can't really value that guy the way you want us to because he's 4 years away and there's a lot of risk. So
what role, thank you, Felix, again for hanging out this whole time. What role does Moniak play next year? Hopefully it's a role player role and not the starting right fielder. Again, I think there's some holes in Mickey Moniak's game out of his big 2025 season that are worrisome. I think there's a reason he's still on the Rockies and not traded away. I want Mickey Moniak to play less than 81 games as a Colorado Rockies.
I mean, I can't help but think like he was arguably our best hitter last season other than Hunter Goodman. So I think he's going to get that shoe in for starts early in the season, but I think they'll play it smarter with him in platoon quite a bit. I don't think he's going to play against left-handed pitching all that much. So I think it's a pretty hard platoon, but he's on the strong side of that, getting to play against righties. So I think he's, playing similar to how he did last year, like role wise, maybe a little bit less though. He played 135 last year.
That was way too many games.
And I don't think he was injured. So, but hey, 110 WRC plus. That's like one of the highest the Rockies have had in a long time. So
if you can platoon him, if you can find a right-hand bat to platoon with Mickey Moniak, I am on board for Mickey Moniak. I just do not want to see that man get 150 at-bats against left-handers. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't work to be a successful franchise if Mickey Moniak is getting that much plate appearances against those. This is my take. Are the 2027 Rockies set up to be the 1994 Montreal Expos? I looked this up because I don't know. I'm going to say no because the 1993 Montreal Expos won 94 games, and the 1994 Expos went 74-40 in that, I think, strike shortened season. So I'm going to say no, just based on the fact that the Rockies were the worst team ever last year to going to whatever that is. But wildly innocent, if you want to expand on what that question actually means, go ahead and put it in the chat. But I don't think so. Sean, Aaron, as always, the Mickey Moniak hater. I don't hate him. I just don't like the profile as a everyday bat. And I think Mickey would be in agreement that he needs to get better against left-handers. And that's all I'm getting at. If he can show growth in that system, great. Like, again, Tigers, I'm in Michigan. I get all that. Kerry Carpenter was used very smartly by the crew, AJ Hinch and crew, to make him successful. That's all I want. Like, you knew when Kerry Carpenter was in the lineup, he was going to hit 1-2. As soon as the starter was out, he was out, and Kerry Carpenter had a fantastic season. Give me that with Mickey Moniak. Be smart about how we're using our tools, I think, is my biggest thing. I don't think it's a Mickey thing. I think it's being smart with how we're actually using our tools and our players to best get the best out of them. That's all I'm at. Christian Saez, what up, DNVR? Has nothing to do with the 2027 contention plan that we're talking about. But which Rockies do you guys want to see in the World Baseball Classic? I'm going to pull one out of the hat. This is for Lewis. Victor Juarez to be on the Mexican team, because dude's buff now. I don't know if you've been seeing Victor Juarez's Instagram. The 18-year-old scrawny kid that we saw a few years ago in Fresno is now a grown adult who's going to add some velocity, and I think is going to be pushing for a rotation spot, long release spot in 2027. But he's the guy that I would like to see kind of be out there in the World Baseball Classic.
I mean, probably pretty like cop out and unexciting Antonio Senzatella for Venezuela.
Yeah,
like I think they could definitely use some depth of like an extra starter, long relief guy. So, and I mean, now he's in this mix though, where maybe he's actually like a leverage reliever. So I don't know entirely what the Venezuelan pitching staff will look like, but I can't imagine that Antonio Senzatella is not one of the 15 best Venezuelan pitchers around right now. So.
But that would be cool. Goodman, red, white, and blue would be great. However, I think the two catchers already kind of decided. I know Will Smith is one, and I think there was another one announced. Alexander De La Cruz, Isaac. I don't know who this is for Germany. I don't think Germany even qualified for the World Baseball Classic, so it should be fun. And then last, before we get into it,
Raleigh.
Yeah, it's Raleigh and Will Smith. Duh. Yeah, I think USA has Raleigh and Smith. Yeah. Tovar is available for Venezuela.
Oh, that's true too. That'd be the better one. I think he'd be a great ad for a team like that.
And I feel like Christian's doing some research for his pod, for the Rockies pod, that he's going to be hosting a little bit. I feel like he's already got some names in mind. Go listen to DMR Rocks and Christian Saez's picks for World Baseball Classics players. 2027 rebuild, though. Thank you for the chat. Love the chat. Always keep the chat going. Thank you, chat. The current talent we kind of talked about. Bullpen is good, and I play this kind of facetiously. Doesn't matter that our 2026 bullpen is good, and you can go down the line. I think you have. I will go down the line. I'll say it real quick. This is according to Rockies Resource, going top down on the Major League squad right now. Victor Vodnik, Jimmy Herget, Juan Mejia, Seth Halverson, Bernardino, Hill, Petit, and Senzatella. I love that. I love that bullpen. Vodnik, Halverson, Zach Agnos isn't on this because I think he's on the injury report. He would be great. Bernardino, who has big upside. Jaden Hill, who I think can be a top 20 reliever in the league if he just figures it out with his stuff. All that stuff, right? So it'll be interesting. But does that matter? Does it matter that the 2026 bullpen's good?
I mean, I think actually that's where you get to have those growth potential, like the growth potential, because if you can get your rotation to be what it should be, like any MLB rotation was not that last year, having a really good bullpen, like you're going to hold down so many leads. And frankly, the bullpen was okay last year. They were respectably good. Like Jimmy Herget, Jake Bird, when he was here, was great. Juan Mejia was really, really solid. Victor Vodnik was pretty consistent year long. Like there was some weirdness to his profile. Like the command just wasn't there. He's getting hit really hard, but still held together. Like the bullpen was fine last year, but if you can get Seth Halverson to be a dog again, if you can get someone else to kind of break out to their potential, like, Zach Agnos, Jaden Hill, to your point, you have a really good bullpen that can save you probably an extra 5-6 games. So, I think it can make a difference. Obviously, in the grand scheme of things, you want a bullpen when you're trying to contend, and they're not contending next year. So there's that, but it's about building that foundation for 2027. Like, can Seth Halverson establish himself as the Rockies closer, and so on and so forth down the list? Like, can these guys become confident going into 2027 and be ready to handle a big workload.
Yeah, agreed. I also think there could be an option where the trade deadline hits and you have these guys, you're trading Jake Bird for 2 guys to add to your system.
Yeah.
But is that worth it? Like if you have Seth Halverson, who's probably my pick to get 20 saves in 2026, if I were to put any money down on that, it would be him. If he is at 15 saves at the deadline and he's pumping 130, whatever a good strikeout rate is for a pitcher, like if that's there, do you trade Seth Halverson for a top 15 prospect to add to the list in a 2027 window? Because if you all look at the Rockies resource and the depth on there, it is bleak in the farm right now. Like you have some guys, but overall it's not a very good system at the moment. So how can you add to that? And you have guys like Wellington Herrera, I don't know how you didn't say his name, coming up through the system, who's going to be a stud, who's going to be, he might be the next 20 save guy for the Colorado Rockies, because there might not be one in 2026. It would, like, you have some of these guys, so how can you move some of them for that? And the deadline loves the relief pitchers, and I think I asked that question in 2027. Does it really matter? Because you can just add, like, hey, we're contending, we're at 82 wins, let's go get us a reliever. Let's go trade one of these prospects for a reliever and add to it. And that's where you kind of hit and miss all that. So I don't know. I think it's good. I think the bullpen is what I'm most excited about in 2026, if that tells you anything. And then, just more steady hitters, I think, is our last part of the 2027 plan. There's so much fluctuation, and I think that's just baseball in general, but they all seem to be fluctuating at the same time. Like you can go Tyler Freeman. He had a nice bell curve season last year. I only know that because of our conversation about Willie Castro. And Jordan Beck is an up and down as a fantasy manager who had Jordan Beck and then didn't have Jordan Beck on his team. And then he did have Jordan Beck on his team and then he did it. Like Jordan Beck likes to fluctuate. Brenton Doyle, you can go down the list. They all ebbs and flows of baseball. But how do you have a consistent lineup? I think it's 1 through 9, a consistent lineup, like what we talked about in lineup creation. Like, give me a few Alex, Sal Frelick, Stephen Kwan types at the beginning, at the top. Ezekiel Tovar would be that guy. To a Hunter Goodman and a Jordan Beck who can get you 25 homers each, and with the Yankel Fernandez who can just hit bombs in the DH role. I would just like that consistent lineup. Like, who your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys are. I think that needs to be settled in 2026.
Yeah, I mean that's something we've been missing since 2019. Like 2020 even was a rough year in 2020 because of Nolan Arenado's shoulder injury. 2021 I think was the year Trevor Story didn't really play well with injuries and things like that. So 2019 was the last time you really had that. Okay, that's our starting 5. Off the top of the order every single day, unless someone's getting a day off. So you gotta establish that. I think you need to really balance the internal development with the like you might add next offseason, you might add a guy who's in your top 5 in the order. And I'd advocate for that, but you're not going to get to having that steady top 5 if you don't get Ezekiel Tovar to, put up a wall in his vision a foot off the plate. Like, say, dude, if there's a slider breaking off the plate, like gonna go in the dirt, like just finding ways to get him to cut down on the chase, because I mean, he's a lethal hitter. Like he makes a lot of contact in zone. Like a lot of his issues are chasing at pitches in the shadow zone, and especially even more off the plate than that. He's not doing his damage there, but when pitches are in zone, he is doing a lot of damage. Could add 1% to his walk rate, would make him a consistent 310 on base guy. Not flashy, but that's exactly what you want. Jordan, back to your point, you've got to get him to take that next leap too. So that's all going to be internal. It comes down to those processes that we talked about. Teams are able to do that. Teams are able to get guys to make that 5% leap, to get better 5%, 10%. A lot of other teams do that. The Rockies have not done that in quite some time. Other than a prospect making a leap from debuting to sophomore season, pretty much a good player. They need to do sophomore season to junior season, where now, hey, you are looking like an all-star. That was Hunter Goodman this year, but he's one in a bucket of dozens of guys that did not do that.
And I think that's where I get worried about a Hunter Goodman type, because you think of Britton Doyle, you think of Nolan Jones, great seasons, and then the next season it was kind of a dud for different reasons. But what is going to help Hunter Goodman be that consistent up the middle pop guy in the 3, 4, 5 spot? And I think that's what I'm most worried about. But if there's anybody to trust, it's Jordan Pacheco and crew up there. All right, we are about the hour mark. Wildly interested in the chat. What would a winning record, how many at home, look like this coming year? I think you need to go at least 400 at home, right? Whatever 400 of 81 is. I think if you're winning that much at home, that's good progress. I don't know if I can look this up though.
I mean, I think you got to get as close as you can. You're not going to go 500, but I think winning like 35 of your 81 at home, that probably boils down to like 45% at home. That's like kind of the target goal, because, Sias mentioned in the chat 25 wins at home last year.
Yeah,
that's most of their wins. They only win like 16 out on the road. So they're not going to win a ton of road games. That's just the nature of Rockies baseball. You've got to win 35, 40 games at home. So you have an advantage there. Like, teams are going to come in and they're not prepared to pitch at Coors Field or to hit there. And you are.
Yeah.
So 35, I would say 35 games target goal, home wins.
40% of 81 is 32 wins. So 32 wins, 35 wins, increasing it by 10, I think would be huge, because I think it comes back to what's the system in place to be successful at Coors. I think that's kind of been the underlying system. How can we win games at home and make our players work for what we have at home? Give me Mickey Moniak at Coors Field against a righty all day, as much as I don't like Mickey, but using that smartly and then building that up, I think is huge. Ideally, you want to avoid losing 100 games overall. Yes, 100%. So getting 35 at home, 40 at home makes that a little bit easier to get 20, 30 on the road. I don't know. What's more important for you next year? More wins at home or more wins on the road? I progress for 20.
I think you've just got to buy in. Like, you've got to just win games at home. Like, there was that series against Toronto. I made a tweet. I'm like, what's more embarrassing, giving up it was like 70 runs in a 4-game series, or scoring like 6? And to me, it's scoring 6. Like, you're going to, I mean, that was I think the most runs they've ever given up in that span. But like, you're going to have series where you give up 50, 60 runs. You cannot have a game or a series at home where you score what you should in a single game in the 4-game stretch. Like, it wasn't, it was embarrassing. Like, if you're going to let up 70 runs, score 25 at least and have some of those games be competitive. That was ridiculous. To me, that was so ridiculous. You've got to, at home, take advantage of what's given to you, which is put the ball in play, score 6, 7 runs a game, not to go there, but you've got to score more than 6 runs a game at home, like, pretty consistently. Rockies probably did that like 6 times, maybe like at max, like 10 times last year at home. They scored 6 runs. It was pretty sad, like, seeing what they were doing at home. Like, just put the ball in play, please. That wasn't happening. So I think getting those wins at home, that is how the Rockies at any point in history will be successful, is winning 60% of their games at home and then whatever out on the road.
100% agree. Definitely need that to be a home field advantage. In 2018, the last time they made the playoffs, the Rockies won 47 games at Coors Field.
Which, I mean, that's not too many.
That
would be that'd be a pretty steady, like, winning a lot out on the road too.
So, yeah, I agree. You got to win at home. You got to be a force. You got to make teams scared to come in. I think we heard Burns and Depot talk about that in the presser. Like, we knew what it was like to come into Coors, and we knew what we needed to do to be able to get there. Like, getting pitching. Give me a quality Coors Field quality start, 4 runs in 5 innings from your starter. You're competing, but you need to score more than 6 runs in a series. Yeah, I remember losing my mind sitting in Coors watching 1-0 games. Crazy stuff. Like, absolutely crazy. All right, so We have a few questions at the end here on the rundown. Let's see. 2026 break. What do we think happens? Can they win 65 games? Yes or no? Say it on 3. Do the Rockies win 65 games? In the chat, play along with us. Right? Yes or no on 3. 1, 2, 3. No.
No.
I just think it's too big of a jump with where their squad is right now. I don't think you get to 65. So a successful 2026 season on the win-loss season to make the casuals, so to speak, happy. What would be a win total to show progress towards the future for my mom? Like, what's my mom going to be excited about?
I mean, the 100 loss thing is really symbolic. So I think for people like that 63, but just in reality, for them to make a 16 game improvement, like 16 to 20 games, that puts them over like right around 60 or a little bit over. Like if they win 60 games, in my view, that would be a really successful year for them, just coming off of the worst, in my opinion, the worst season in Major League history. Like if you can jump 20 wins from that, like, okay, hey, you're back on track. You deserve to be cared about.
Yeah, Sean says yes. He thinks we can get 65 wins. Good for you. I think 55 is a successful season. 20 game jump with essentially the same squad. It just seems daunting. Yeah. It seems tough. Granted, new coaches, but that just means new systems, which means there might be a step back before you take 3 steps forward type thing. And as you're getting where we're going, right? What is a successful season? Not on the win-loss record, but just in general. He says that he's answering before us. Learn what direction this front office is heading, signings, trades, philosophies, etc. Of those 3 in the parentheses, etc., I think the philosophies and the systems in play are a huge part of it. And again, in our rundown, I have it written down. I need the processes to get better. Like you mentioned, Ezekiel Tovar not swinging at sliders. Like what percentage of outside the zone swing percentage did Ezekiel Tovar have last year? And can we bring that back 5%? Can we decrease our strikeout rate as a team who I had this written down and I really liked the fact that I found it. Of course, I can't.
I think you had it from the pitching side, maybe.
It was the pitching side. Dang it. The hitting side, like how are we lowering this team strikeout rate? How are we bringing that down? Like, can I don't know. Ezekiel Tovar have 10 games with 3 or more strikeouts? Like, I don't know. I feel like he probably had more than that. Whatever that threshold is, I want the systems in play to get a little bit better. Like, how can Jordan Beck's 28% strikeout rate go down to 25% strikeout rate while the walk rate is going up to a 7%, 8%? I think that's huge for me, the K rate, walk rate. I think that's how you can kind of figure out what you have in a team. Those are what I deem important in a player. But I think there are systems in place that can make those things better.
Yeah. And then, I mean, the pitching side, we've got the guys now, I think, in place to help make the same improvement. Like, obviously, strikeout, walk rate, but you only get there by making, like, tangible improvements with your pitches. So I think we have the guys in place to do that on the other side, too.
Yep. Need to see those analytics being implemented. Dari, thank you for hanging out with us. OG fan right there. Which players are still here in 2027? Obviously, we talked about our five main ones. I think Jordan Beck, Doyle, Tovar, Goodman, and Doe are all part of this squad. But what about the rest of them? I'll let you take this one.
I mean, for most of them, 2026 performance is going to be huge. Like, we saw this offseason. We're down like six guys, I think, from the last year's team that they didn't even want a part of to really like see, can we turn this guy around? They said we're trimming things up. There were a lot of guys I think they were close to doing that with. They still might if there's 3 or 4 acquisitions the rest of the way. Going into this season, like 2026 is a tough year for some guys. Like, think of Tyler Freeman. If he repeats what he did last year, I don't know that he's on the team in 2027. And I mean, there's probably 10 guys that fit that bill. The only guys who are unlikely to be back, to me, well, one guy unlikely to be back is Antonio Sensatella. He has a club option for next year. I unless he is an elite reliever this year, he's not getting his club option exercise. Kyle Freeland might not even be a chance for him to just by default come back. his option requires him to throw 170 innings this year and then himself opt into the contract as a club option. So Kyle Freeland, he's probably going to be a free agent after this season. Good chance he resigns, but this front office does not have the same loyalties to him as, Bill Schmidt. And, Bill Schmidt would be like, yeah, we're giving Kyle a blank check. I don't think Paulie Podesta is doing that. So Senza 99% gone. Freeland, I don't know. That's a topic for another time. It's a big one.
That's very Herman Marquez-esque. I did not know that about the 170s and then opt into it. How many seasons does Kyle Freeland have pitching 170 innings or more in his 9-year career?
I would say 1.
He had 2. 2018, he went 202, 202 innings with a 2.85 ERA, 4th in Cy Young. Incredible year. Would love to have that back. But then in 2022, he pitched 174 innings.
Okay.
So, but everything else, 155, 113, 162 last year. So another start or two, he could make it. But he's what, 32? Age so. 32. He'll be 33 by season start. So you have an age 33 Kyle Freeland trying to go into 170. What else? Which players need to break out for this team and where it needs to go? I love this question. I'm going to go first, though. My breakout, I was thinking about this earlier as well, but I won't get into that, what I was thinking earlier. I don't know why you brought it up then. Need to break out. Tovar. Ezekiel Tovar needs to break out. I think he's the one guy that you see these steps. He's the average player. Nobody's mad that Ezekiel Tovar is on their team, but nobody's excited that Ezekiel Tovar is on their team right now. I would like that step forward, that give me the 25, give me the 20 home runs. I think you have that. You might have 15, 20 steals in you, 80 RBIs, 90 runs. Obviously, you need people to hit behind you. But what's that step forward? I think Ezekiel Tovar, because the Rockies' history of shortstops is incredible. Like Tulo Story, I mean, shoot, throw Walt Weiss in there. Like you have these dogs that are the shortstop is what ran the team. And if you get Ezekiel Tovar to run that team, let's go to the moon. And I think that's there. And then the other thing is there needs to be a number 2 starter to step up. Like speaking for you, we're comfortable saying that Dollander is the ace of the squad in 2027 for the 2027 rebuild, right? So who's stepping up behind that? We've seen Ryan Feltner go up and down. I feel his frustrations that he sometimes puts out there. Yeah. What's the step that he needs to put out there? McCade Brown is somebody that we've been high on for a long time with the strikeout ability. Can he be a dog that comes out? You got Sean Sullivan and Gabe Hughes coming up. There was another starter I wanted to bring up down below. Maybe, nope, don't have it. But like, who can be that number 2 guy that can say, all right, for Kyle Freeland, it's fine. You can sign with us, league minimum. You're the 3rd, 4th, 5 starter. But who's that number 2 that you come into a series against the Dodgers like Chase Dollander and this guy? That freaks me out. Where's our Herman Marquez and our Kyle Freeland in 2018? What do we have in 2017? And I need one of those players to step up. I need to break out from one of those. I want to solidify number 2.
It's a good point. I ultimately think you might have to go outside the org for it.
Honestly, you might have to. Yeah,
that's a tough can of worms to talk through.
Another offseason pod.
For me, I mean, and we talked about it a bit. We need Dollander to break out, and I think a lot of his faults came down to being told to do the wrong, or like not being told to do the right things. Like his four-seam fastball is not going to cut it at Coors Field the way it was used. He started throwing a sinker. It was effective. I don't know why he was still throwing, the same way, throwing fastballs up like often like that. It's a great mix and pitch at home, but when the movement is mitigated by 10%, it's a dead zone fastball at home, no matter how hard he's throwing it. So revamping that fastball usage will be great. I think also just finding more of an identity with his secondaries. It seemed like it would be all over the place, which is a good thing to be able to rely on different pitches in different games, but need to have 3 secondaries that you're going to consistently rely on. It was like one game you've got 2 of them, one game you've got 1 of them. There was never really a game he had all 3 that he could throw 10, 15% of the time, along with the 2 fastballs. For me, Adeo Amador is a guy who needs to break out.
That is a name we have not said today.
There is some uncertainty at second base. he is a guy with pedigree. I'm a lot low. Obviously, everyone's now a lot lower on him. Seeing the lack of just even, he's not going to be a power guy, but the lack of impact in his batted balls has me a little bit concerned where he's going to go. But really, the concern is you pair that with I don't understand the approach. He goes from in the minor leagues being Mr. Selective to coming up to the big leagues, and it's like, what is this approach? And that's where I get frustrated with the coaching and the game planning. Like Ade Amador is on this team because his approach is great, and he comes up here and he's swinging at first pitches out of the zone. Like that cannot happen. Things like that. Like he has got to be locked in, and they got to tell him, take a lot of pitches, do your thing, like trust your hands to catch up to stuff. And so Ade Amador is someone for me, like he's got to get confident. We see a lot of young players, they press. He seemed like one of the biggest pressers in the big leagues I've seen in some time, where it's like, that's a different player in the big leagues than it was in the minors. And not because of a skill reason. It was an approach and a process thing. Someone's got to get him, reined in. And I think a new staff, forward thinking, they're the guys that do it. It's okay to not swing. Like, I think the old traditional way is obviously swing at strikes, but it's swing at strikes, go attack mode. And that's just not the way that baseball is played or evaluated at this point in time. So I want to see Amador get back to that polish.
And I think there is I think he might be the poster child of the old regime, because I remember in 2024 looking at him play in AA Hartford before he got the call up, and he was swinging way more often early in the counts than he was at Spokane or Fresno. And then he went up to the majors, it was even worse. Then he came back down to the minors and he took a few more pitches per plate appearance. But I wonder if that was just the philosophy. Go out and swing, fellas, because you saw that in Yanquil Fernandez. You saw that in Montero. You saw that in Tolia. Go down the line, right? You see that in all of them. So I wonder if the old regime can rein it back in, because Adel Amador would be great as a contact guy that we were talking about, having that consistency and extending a lineup. Like, give me Adel Amador contact Spokane, Adel Amador at the seven hole. And you're just a little scared, all right, this guy might be able to just bloop one in, and we're extending the lineup for a Mickey Moniak moonshot. It might be there. It would be good. I love the Adel Amador name that you just threw out there. The return of John Gray. Dude's a reliever. No.
And maybe he doesn't pitch another MLB game. I don't wish that, but I think that might be the case.
Yes. We'll yeah, hopefully he's still going. Carson Palmquist, experiment over as a starter. I agree, Sean. I hope not. I would love to see Carson as a starter. I think he might get some rain there. Thinking big picture, it freaks me out to think of a Kyle Freeland, Sean Sullivan, and Carson Palmquist, all the same exact type pitcher in the same rotation. So I think there's a battle between Palmquist and Sullivan in 2026 to see who can be kind of step up and be that dog. That's the Kyle Freeland light lefty guy. I think he has the stuff to be a starter. I don't know what happened last year. It felt like they gave up on him as a starter, and hey, we're just going to see what we have in Tanner Gordon and McKay Brown and Laylock, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. How many games does Carson Palmquist start in 2026? 0. I was going to say at least 10. I was going to put the over-under at 10.
I mean, I think he's right now number 3 lefty in the bullpen mix. So
okay,
I think that's, unless he comes out of camp throwing 92, 93, I as a starter with workload, I think he's in the pen.
All right, we disagree on that. Interesting. Is Ryan Rinder the opening day second baseman? As of right now, yes, unless Nicky Lopez makes his way up. I think Ryan Rinder being on the 40-man. I don't think Ryan Ritter had a terrible season in 2025. He is a name that we haven't talked about. His injury kind of put him in behind the scenes, the back of our minds. But Ryan Ritter as the utility guy in 2027 is not a terrible idea. And I think he could be an opening day second baseman in 2026. Is he the opening day second baseman on a 2027 contending team? I don't know. But I think right now it's Ryan Ritter's job to lose. We'll see.
Him and Amador will have a good fight, and maybe Nicky Lopez.
Hopefully not Willie Castro. And then last but not least, I mean, where are we going long? Who cares? It's the off season. What are some strategies we want to see them try? So for me, it's the strikeouts. This is where I had the cool stats. But the strikeouts from the pitchers, we suck at striking out pitchers, like batters. It was this philosophy of contact, pitch to contact, use your defense, get guys out. But as Saris was saying to Amir Garrett, there's too much variability in contact. If you can get a pitcher that can get guys struck out to not put the ball in play, your chances of winning that game increases. And you can see that across the board. You see all these big strikeout guys, Paul Skeens, Tarek Skubal, like they know how to get guys out. This is huge because the Rockies ranked last year with 1,093 strikeouts as a staff. The Dodgers were number one with 1,500, give or take. Sure, striking out at Coors might be tough, but there might be some things that can be put in play to make that happen. Looking at 2016 as a benchmark, I was like, oh, maybe the strikeouts just got higher and the Dodgers just got really good at that because we know batters like to strike out more. No, the Dodgers in 2016 led the league with 1,510 strikeouts. The Colorado Rockies had 1,200 as a staff in 2016. So I think for me, it's seeing more strikeouts from the pitching staff, mainly the starters, going forward over the next few seasons.
Yeah, not enough. There has not been enough, and that kind of builds on one of the strategies for me is like we got to ditch the first thing you look at is ground ball percentage. Like, yeah, go for guys who can generate 40% ground balls. You don't need to. There's some guys who are going to generate 25% or low 30s. You don't want that necessarily, but it's time to avoid the traditional ground ball approach, which is pounding a low 90s fastball low in the zone and throwing a changeup and a slider low in the zone. Like, you've got to be able to vary things. You've got to be able to throw hard. That's just the way the game is today, unless you have your Max Fried, and Max Fried even throws like 93, 94. Yeah. So the command there is a plus, but it's partly because he just has good left-handed stuff. But get me the Brody Breck types, power downhill. Like, if the stuff works downhill, that's great, but it still needs to be good stuff. I'm over the poor stuff, but he gets ground balls thing. No, it just doesn't work. You're going to give up 10 hits 5 times a year at Coors Field. And those are games I don't want any part of, and they're guaranteed losses. So
can't make that work. So kind of recapping our 2027 rebuild is what systems are in place by this front office that make the team a little bit better in 2026. We're looking at the analytics being used as the pitchers and the hitters, seeing some of these guys step up, and seeing what kind of motivation there will be to add outside help. Again, our system is low, so how do we add some contenders to help with Charlie Condon's window? Like, we see the Pirates adding to their Paul Skeens window. Don't know if it's enough, but how are we going to be adding to a Chase Dolan or Charlie Condon type window in 2027? It's really the systems and seeing some growth in some of these corner guys going forward, and going from there. And we want more strikeouts, less strikeouts. We want all of it. But I think 2026 is a big season to prepare for 2027, and then 2028 being the more realistic window of getting to the 80, 85 win mark. Anything else for the good of the cause, Tyler?
I think this whole thing, a little bit of a pipe dream, but if this front office works in a lot of the ways that it can, I don't see why 75 wins is not on the table in 2027. And if you're a true talent 75 win team, you can easily win 80 plus. If you have some luck go your way, you can be an 80 plus win team, and you're right there in the playoff mix. So need to see some activity start. I think this offseason you still need things to happen. There's 2 spots on the 40-man roster, and we're going to see some of that start to kick in. I don't know that they're 2027 impacts, though, but it's more opportunities to test things, and that's what matters.
Let's experiment and figure out what works. Go Rocks! Woo!